Good morning and welcome to the New York City Council vote of the Committee on Governmental Operations. At this time, can everybody please silence your cell phones? Chair, we are ready to begin.
Good morning. I'm Councilmember Sandra Ong, Chair of the Committee on Governmental Operations. I would like to welcome my colleagues who have joined us, Councilmember Shulman, Brewer, Hanif, and Ressler. At today's hearing, the committee will be voting on a bill sponsored by Councilmember Brewer that will add additional options to list documents and verifications that can be used as proof identity and residency needed to apply for the ID NYC identification card. The ID NYC program was first launched in January 2015 and was designed to provide all New Yorkers, regardless of immigration status, with an affordable, safe, and widely accepted government-issued form of identification. This program also targeted formerly incarcerated individuals, those who experience homelessness and the unbanked for the purpose of obtaining a proper ID. A key feature of the ID NYC program is that it accepts a wide variety of documentation as proof of identity and residency than most other types of government-issued ID. This allows people that may not have access to the documentation required to obtain most other forms of state-issued identification to get an ID. By all accounts, this program has been a resounding success, with more than 1.5 million cards issued through the second quarter of this year. New York is experiencing a drastic increase in asylum seekers, with over 120,000 arriving since the spring of 2022. Many of these asylum seekers lack identification. They have documents confiscated when they present themselves at the border, or they have only consular identification cards, driver license, or birth certificate issued by their country of origin, which aren't widely accepted in the United States. Having an American government-issued form ID is crucial for those newcomers to New York. It allows them to open bank accounts, access public buildings, simplify interactions in NYPD. But obtaining a government ID requires documentation that many asylum seekers do not have. This bill we'll be voting on today will make it easier for asylum seekers, justice-involved individuals, and other New York City residents to obtain a widely accepted form of identification. The additional documents the bill will add to the list of what's acceptable to obtain ID NYC and will include documents issued by federal immigration authorities, electronic verification through Department of Corrections, and release offender verification cards. This bill also amends the documents accepted for proof of residency to include written verification for emergency housing deemed appropriate by relevant agencies. And with that, I want to thank Jayasri Ganepi and Erica Cohen from the central staff for their work in putting this hearing together, as well as my own chief, Alexander Hart, and my communications director, Shane Miller, for their assistance. And now we'll turn it over to Councilmember Brewer to give a statement on her bill.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair Ong, and thank you to the staff and certainly to Sam Goldsmith from my office. I was around in 2014 when the City Council created the ID NYC, and I think all of us, residents and undocumented individuals, were pleased to have a legitimate government-issued photo ID. That 2014 law, as we heard, specified the documents an applicant could use to demonstrate identity and proof of residency. And it was a real addition to those coming to the United States and to New York in particular, because previously you could only get something sometimes from the Consul General's office. The law states that the administrative agency, in this case Human Resource Administration, may accept, quote, any other documentation that the agency deems acceptable, unquote. However, that was always challenging to staff, because the decision to deem a document acceptable falls on individual HRA employees who process the applications, and we've heard from workers at the HERCs and at the shelters that it's luck of the draw sometimes. That's why we're working and passing, hopefully, this law. Sometimes documents issued by federal immigration authorities are accepted as proof of identity. Obviously, this has been a real issue recently. Other times they are not. And sometimes letters from HERCs are accepted as proof of residency, but not always. We've heard this over and over again from families in my district and across the city. So 790B would expand the list of acceptable documents, as you heard. U.S. Department of Homeland Security Forms I-385, 6862 and 220A. Those are all federals. Also, another one, order of supervision. Number 2, verification through the Department of Correction incarcerated individual lockup system. That verification would be accepted. And quote, a released offender ID card issued by the New York State Department of Corrections, and written verification from emerging housing that receives city funding. As we said, that has been a challenge in the past. I want to thank Chair Ung and the members of this committee for your support, and to say I hope this helps individuals who are trying really hard to get identification. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Brewer, and now I'll turn it over to legislative documents to take the vote.
Thank you. Good morning. William Martin, Committee Clerk. Roll call vote. Committee on Governmental Operations. Proposed introduction 790B. Chair Ung.
I vote aye.
Brewer.
I vote aye.
Hanif.
Aye.
Rustler.
Permission to explain my vote? Back in 2014 and 2015, I was working full-time on the IDNYC program and personally led the negotiations with the NYPD Intelligence Division to determine what documents would be accepted for proof of identification and proof of residency. And with helpful input from the council at that time, we, I think, created a form of IDNYC that was broadly accessible to New Yorkers. But this legislation by Councilmember Brewer absolutely responds to the needs of asylum seekers and migrants that have recently arrived in New York who need and deserve the IDNYC, helps improve access for formerly incarcerated individuals, and is an absolutely valuable addition to what has been a tremendously successful program where over 1 million New Yorkers have already benefited from government-issued photo ID. Working on the IDNYC program is one of the things I'm most proud of in my career, and I really want to thank Councilmember Brewer and Chair Ung, Councilmember Hanif, and others for their work on this legislation today. Thank you. I'm an aye, sorry.
Thank you. Schulman.
Aye.
With a vote of 5 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and no abstentions, item has been adopted by the committee. And Madam Chair, that is a full committee.